During the last ice age, temperatures across Europe and Asia regularly dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. In some regions, minus 60. These were not occasional extreme events. This was the climate, season after season, for thousands of years. And modern humans not only survived it, they thrived in it. They made art. They built structures. They maintained long-distance trade networks. They expanded into new territory. How a species evolved for the African savannah, survived conditions that would kill most modern people within hours, is one of the most remarkable stories in human prehistory. To understand how ancient humans survived extreme cold, you first need to understand what cold actually does to a human body. Hypothermia begins at a core body temperature of around 35 degrees Celsius, just 2 degrees below normal. At 32 degrees, confusion and disorientation set in. At 30 degrees, a person cannot rewarm themselves without external help. Below 28 degrees, the heart begins to fail. In still air at minus 20 degrees Celsius, an unprotected human loses body heat fast enough to become hypothermic within an hour. Add wind, and that timeline collapses to minutes. Ancient humans in Ice Age Europe were not facing occasional cold snaps. They were navigating a world where the wrong decision, no shelter, wet clothing, fire that went out, meant death. The margin for error was zero. The first and most critical survival technology was clothing. Not the crude skin wrappings that popular imagination tends to picture, but sophisticated layered garments constructed with real engineering. Archaeological evidence from sites like Sungir in Russia, where 34,000-year-old burials were found with traces of thousands of mammoth ivory beads sewn onto clothing, shows that Ice Age people were producing fitted, decorated garments. The bead distribution traces the outlines of tailored clothes. These were not draped skins. They were sewn, fitted, and likely layered. Eyed needles, bone and ivory needles with a hole for thread appear in the archaeological record around 45,000 years ago. The needle is one of the most consequential tools in human history. With it, you can sew fitted seams that trap air between layers and close the gaps that let cold in at the wrists, neck, and ankles. Without it, no amount of animal hide keeps out minus 40 degrees. The clothing was almost certainly fat-treated for water resistance, as we know from ethnographic parallels with Arctic peoples today. Wet clothing loses most of its insulating capacity. Keeping the outer layer dry while trapping warm air inside was the critical thermal engineering challenge. Shelter was the second line of defense, and in treeless tundra landscapes where wood was scarce, ancient humans showed remarkable ingenuity. The mammoth-bone structures of sites like Mezherych in Ukraine, where huts were constructed from interlocked mammoth skulls and long bones covered with hides, demonstrate that Ice Age people were building winter residences capable of retaining heat against extreme cold. These were not temporary camps. They were engineered winter homes. Fire management was equally critical. The challenge in extreme cold is not starting a fire, but keeping one going continuously. Ancient humans almost certainly maintained fire as a managed resource, carrying embers in fungus or bone containers, never letting the fire go completely out, treating fire as infrastructure rather than as something to be restarted from scratch. Beneath all of these technologies, clothing, shelter, fire, was the most fundamental survival strategy of all: each other. A group generates heat that an individual cannot. Sleeping bodies pressed together retain warmth that isolated bodies lose. Social bonds in extreme cold are not just emotionally valuable. They are thermally essential. The evidence from Ice Age sites consistently shows groups, not individuals. Storage of food across seasons. Division of labor. Specialized tool production, suggesting people who maintained roles within a functioning social unit across the long winter months. The Ice Age did not just test ancient human technology, it tested ancient human society, and the groups that survived were the ones that stayed together. So, how did ancient humans survive the deadliest winters? With eyed needles and fat-treated hides? With mammoth bone shelters and managed fire? With the stored knowledge of which plants could treat cold-related illness and which animal furs offered the best insulation? With social bonds tight enough to keep a group functional through months of darkness and cold? Not by being tougher than the cold, by being smarter than it. The species that survived the Ice Age and came out the other side did not do so through brute endurance. They did it through accumulated knowledge, engineered solutions, and the decision to face it together. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I'll see you in the next one.